You already know the obvious problem with interstellar travel. The stars are far, absurdly far, so far that the numbers stop feeling like distance and start feeling like a prank. But that's not the big problem nobody talks about, because distance is the headline problem. The real problem is quieter, more psychological, more strategic, and if we ever try to send humans to another star, this problem might destroy the mission before the ship even leaves the launch pad. Here it is. If you leave too early, you might arrive last. Not like second place, last like after your own descendants have already been there for thousands of years. And you'll realize the most horrifying part isn't the emptiness between stars, it's the possibility that your entire mission becomes pointless while you're still traveling. Let's unpack that carefully, because once you see it, you can't unsee it. Start with something simple. Pick the nearest star system, Proxima Centauri. It's about 4.24 light-years away. A light-year is the distance light travels in a year, about 9.46 trillion kilometers. So Proxima is roughly 40 trillion kilometers away. Now let's talk about speed. The fastest human-made object ever launched is not a sci-fi starship, it's a probe. And even our fastest probes move at speeds that are impressive on Earth, but pathetic on the scale of interstellar space. If you travel at around 17 kilometers per second, Voyager 1 territory, reaching Proxima would take on the order of 70,000 years. 70,000 years! That's longer than all recorded human history. So humans can't do that. Not in normal bodies, not with normal lifespans. So whenever people imagine interstellar travel with humans, the conversation usually jumps to one concept, the generation ship. A self-contained city in space. A ship big enough to carry a small population. Farms, water recycling, medical facilities, schools, governance. People are born on it, live on it, die on it. Their children do the same, generation after generation. Until thousands of years later, the ship arrives. It sounds epic, and it is, but it also sounds like a slow-motion trap, because here comes the problem nobody wants to put in the trailer. Imagine you're the first generation, the original crew. You give up Earth forever. You accept that you'll never see the destination. You accept that your children will never see it either. You accept that maybe nobody alive for the next 300 generations will ever see it. And you do it because you believe you are building the future. Now imagine 1,000 years pass. Just 1,000. In cosmic terms, that's nothing. But in human terms, 1,000 years is an entire civilization's worth of progress. 1,000 years ago, many humans still crossed oceans in wooden ships. We didn't have electricity. We didn't have antibiotics. We didn't have rockets. Now look at us. Now imagine what 1,000 years of progress could do to propulsion. New energy sources, better materials, more efficient engines, or even completely new physics. And here's what that means. A second mission could launch later and still arrive earlier. Let's do the logic with a simple example. Mission 1 launches today. It can travel fast for today's standards, but interstellar travel is still slow, so it will take 20,000 years to reach its target. Now, 1,000 years later, Earth has advanced. Mission 2 launches with better technology. Maybe it can do the same trip in 5,000 years. So Mission 2 launches later, but arrives 14,000 years before Mission 1. It overtakes the pioneers. It colonizes the destination. It builds cities. It becomes the first humans there. And then, thousands of years after that, Mission 1 arrives. After centuries of sacrifices, after generations who lived their whole lives in a metal cylinder, believing the planet ahead would be their first sunrise, they arrive and see lights on the surface. Not alien lights, human lights. They're not the founders. They're the latecomers. They're the living proof that leaving early can be the worst possible choice. This is the big interstellar problem nobody talks about, the wait paradox. If you launch now, you risk being overtaken by those who wait. But if you keep waiting for better technology, you may never launch at all. Because there will always be a better engine in 50 more years. always a new breakthrough around the corner, always a reason to delay. So what do? How do you choose the right moment to leave? This is where the idea becomes truly unsettling, because the biggest obstacle isn't building a ship, it's building commitment. How do you convince people to join the first generation of a mission that may be obsolete before it even reaches the halfway point? How do you convince the second generation, born into the mission, to continue? How do you convince the 50th generation, the 200th? Because every generation will ask the same question. Why are we still doing this? Why are we trapped in here? What if Earth has already solved the problem? What if a faster ship is already on its way? And that doubt is not a small issue, it's existential. Because a generation ship isn't held together by bolts and metal, it's held together by shared belief. If belief collapses, the mission collapses. No society can stay stable for thousands of years on pure force. You can't run a multi-millennia civilization on a spaceship with constant coercion. People rebel, systems break, culture changes, goals drift. And once the mission becomes just something we do because we were born here, it becomes fragile. That's the psychological side of interstellar travel that sci-fi usually skips. We talk about engines, but the ship's real fuel is purpose. Now add another layer. Even if the ship stays stable, Earth keeps changing. Languages evolve, values change, politics shift. Even if Earth never dies, it may become unrecognizable. So the people on the ship aren't just traveling through space, they're traveling away from their origin in time, culture, and meaning. Eventually, they may not see themselves as Earthlings at all. They become a new branch of humanity, a human species that grew up inside a machine. And at that point, the mission isn't a trip, it's a permanent split in what it means to be human. Now, there is one way this paradox becomes less brutal, if you can travel close to the speed of light. Because once you're near the universal speed limit, future improvements don't help much. If you're already at, say, 20% the speed of light and a future ship reaches 25%, that's not a giant difference. The overtake risk shrinks, and now it might finally make sense to go. But that brings us right back to physics. To reach significant fractions of light speed with a crude ship, you face monsters. Energy requirements that are hard to even describe, radiation that becomes deadly, dust impacts that become catastrophic, and the fact that slowing down at the destination is its own nightmare. So what does this mean for the real future? It suggests something that feels disappointing, but is actually smart. The first interstellar travelers probably won't be people. They'll be probes, small, fast, cheap, replaceable. They can sprint, they can fly by, they can send back data, and if they fail, we build another. Robotic missions don't suffer the weight paradox the same way humans do, because no one has to live and die inside them. No one has to believe for 20,000 years. No one has to keep a society stable in a metal corridor. So the big problem nobody talks about is not just distance, it's timing, it's commitment. It's the brutal logic that makes early heroism potentially useless. Because in interstellar travel, the future is your competitor, and the future has better engines. So here's the final question that decides everything. When is the right time to leave? Not when we can, when should we? When is our technology mature enough that leaving early won't turn into a tragedy? When are future gains small enough that you won't be overtaken? And when do we finally stop waiting and go? That is the real interstellar dilemma. Not the rocket, not the fuel, not even the distance. The terrifying possibility that the greatest journey in human history could become a centuries-long sacrifice only to arrive and discover the destination was never yours to begin with. So let me ask you, if you lived in a world that could build a generation ship, would you launch it as soon as possible? Or would you wait, knowing that waiting might mean you never leave at all? Write your answer in the comments. And if you want more stories that treat the future like physics, not fantasy, subscribe to Beyond 2200. because the universe isn't just big, it's patient, and it rewards civilizations that know when to move.